and equity, it's important, I think, to kind of define it in terms of what the definition says, but then use real stories to describe what equity means. So if I were to look at all three of those terms, when you look at diversity, basically it says this is the presence of differences within a given setting. Equity is the process of ensuring that processes and programs are impartial, fair, and provide equal possible outcomes for every individual. And inclusion is the practice of ensuring that people feel a sense of belonging in the workplace. So the third one is more about emotion, feeling, connection. The first one's about the differences, whether that's gender, race, age, you name it, just a differing perspective. But the equity piece is sort of that awareness and that processes to make sure that everybody really is practicing fair and impartial practices. So with that, first of all, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Erica Courtney, and I am on the NDILC. So backtrack, and we have Teresa and we have Desiree. So thrilled, these women are amazing. So I just want to kick it off, since it's just the three of us. What does equity mean to you, Teresa?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us today. And, you know, there's so many perspectives that you can talk about in equity, you know, all along in different areas, right? For me, I'm going to give you a personal example of what I struggled with as I was a college student that had a career. My degree was originally in broadcasting, because I think this kind of gives you a good idea of what happens every day for those that don't have versus those that might have the opportunities like I gave my children. So I actually paid my own way through college. I worked several jobs in order to be able to support myself. And my mother had passed away years when I was 18. So I had no support. It was just, my dad moved from Mississippi, where I was going to school, to Georgia. So in other words, I had nowhere to live except in the dorm rooms. And, you know, when you go home for breaks, I couldn't fly home. I didn't have the financial whereabout to do that. And so my senior year of college, I knew that I had to go home that summer to be able to pay. So it was between my junior and senior year, right? To be able to work so I could pay just to eat. Okay, now a lot of people don't understand. It wasn't just to work so I could save up money, but it was just so I could afford to eat during the entire year. And I certainly just received grants, and I was able to get scholarships as well as loans. So I did have all that, and I remember all those except for the grants and scholarships you have to pay back. So I had loans in order to get through, but it didn't cover everything. It certainly didn't cover all my books and also my dorm, you know, my meals. And I was approached by a professor who had one opportunity out of our 1,000 communication juniors, and he came to me and he said, Teresa, we have an internship with ABC, and we would like to make that offer to you. It is a summer internship. It is an opportunity, because I really loved what I was doing and really studied really hard, obviously, you know, and he says, we think you're the best candidate, and we would love to offer that opportunity. And I was so excited, but guess what? There was no way that I could do it, because it was not paid. I was going to have to live in another city, find my own housing, cover everything. And I just explained to you that I actually had to work so I could live another year, so I could support my meal, you know, just having enough to eat, right? And he didn't understand why I would he was giving me the opportunity that 1,000 other people would take in an instant to do an internship that I couldn't even think about taking, because I didn't have the whereabouts to do it. And people say, well, what do you mean you couldn't call somebody? No, I didn't have friends that had money. I had no one that could help. I didn't even have enough for me to eat, to eat my meals. I had to pay for my meal ticket. All of those things were part of being, and I lived in the dorms. Now, how many people lived in the dorms their entire year? Because most people move out and get their own apartments right after, but I actually was one of those that lived in the dorms, and, because that's what I could afford to do. And I had to turn that opportunity down. And of course, it went to somebody else who jumped on it right away. And it wasn't because of any other reason, is that I just didn't have an equal playing field. I didn't have the opportunity. So I see that in our business in real estate, that's what happens a lot of times. People that want to get into the fields or the careers of real estate, they can't do it, not because they don't want to, they don't have the skill sets. It's because there is a downtime. There is a time frame where somebody has to earn that, make enough sales to be able to fund, right, to be able to support themselves as well, in addition to the fees and the costs that there are to run a business. So we look at everything when it comes to equity, and how can we help support, and what programs can we make available for our agents, our vets, for them to be able to come into this career and also be very equitable. So that's how I see it. If people can relate and understand, really, I say that is what equity is all about, is having the opportunity, like anyone else, to be able to do something that everyone else could do based on that equitable playing field. Does that make sense? Oh, you're on mute, Erica.
No, it does. The opportunities that people are afforded, definitely are related to finances. And then that,
and people they know, right? It's access to contacts too, because all of that makes a difference. There's, I think, a commercial that I love that talks about, there's people are all in one line, right? On the, and they have to go get to the other side. And they say, how many of you, had your college paid for, step up. And as you can see, people stepping up, the people that don't step up are those that can't get to that as fast as the others. And that's really what I think is really important for in our messaging regarding this.
No, that I remember that video. It was super powerful. How much further ahead the people who had those opportunities were than the people who were, struggling. So in your position, you're leading the efforts of DINE across multiple companies. How do you build that equity within your company? And, take us back to when you took over. How did you look at the systems, processes, or lack thereof, and what are you doing now to ensure that there is that fair access?
First of all, great question, Erica. And when I first took over, we had to sit down and review. And again, I have to tell you, our organization's always been really committed to DE&I regardless. And Gino, certainly when he hired me at HSF and now at Home Services that I've moved up, they've always been very dedicated. But what we've done differently is that I think what you have to do is that awareness and that commitment has got to come from the top. And a lot of times our leaders really don't know, not because they don't want, it's just a sensitivity around it, right? And so education was the number one thing for us. So this past year, we instituted so many educational programs. And prior to my being there, we did unconscious bias training. We did inclusive language training. We did, I'm so proud that every single one of our companies and their leadership teams committed and took the At Home with Diversity course. Now, the At Home with Diversity course is a course that is taught by the National Association of Realtors. It is a course that teaches diversity, equity, and inclusion, fair housing. It is about equity. It's about opportunities. It's about, making sure that we are delivering all of these principles within our communities and the communities that we serve, and within our own leadership. And so each of our leaders within, and we trained over 1,000 of our leaders in the 35 companies that we operate. Even Gino Bafari, I'm proud to say, who's the CEO of our organization, took the course. Why is that significant? Because it's a 7-hour course. It's not like an hour where they go in and they can do something. It's a 7-hour course with a test at the end. And that each one of them took that course with me teaching it. So I was there as that was our initial beginning, right? That's how we started. And then we've done a pulse survey to test where we are, which now we can measure. We've done a belonging summit that now really, we had a lot of participation in the belonging summit with our employee resource groups, as well as agent resource groups and business resource groups, depending on how the company identifies them. And we will continue to do that within 2022, which we're excited about. We're going to expand that. And then we're also expanding every program that we have to make it available so that realtors and agents can get involved in our industry. Plus, we started a foundation, the Home Services of America Foundation, and that foundation is about equity and creating opportunities for underserved markets. And so that is another area that we have focused on this year. There's so much more, but I know there's other people that need to talk because I could spend all day long talking about this. Is a very passionate topic for me. So,
well, they have the right person for the job for sure. I mean, just your background and what you bring. And I think that your process orientation and creating that awareness, I never assume people understand this world. So yeah, it definitely starts with that education and having that support from the top, having them speak to this and the importance so that people rally and they don't look at it like a check the block, that it's important for other reasons. It makes it, a better place for people to work. No, that's awesome. Thank you, Teresa. Hey, Tammy, welcome.
Hey,
how are you? We're talking about build equity, empowering women every day to achieve an equal playing field. So Tammy, you also are a titan in real estate and in other things of your life. Speaking of which, how's the martial arts going?
my hair hurts right now, but I'm gone from April when I started back training. I could do about 20 push-ups on my knees, and I can now do 50 on my fingertips.
Oh
so
my God, I love it.
I'm getting there.
So when we're done with this, I want to see it. It's like G.I. Jane. Just put the camera down.
I can't do one.
I get up and do 50 push-ups and 100 sit-ups before I start doing any of the rest of the exercise every single day. But I can definitely tell you everything hurts.
Oh my God.
It's worth it, but it hurts.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. But obviously that mental toughness takes you, and physical toughness, to how you're doing in life and the things that you've overcome and the things that you continue to do, that amazes all of us every day. So when you think of the word equity and you are in a position of leadership, how do you create that equity, sort of those processes, systems, ensuring that things are fair and impartial across the board? What is your approach?
Well, I think that there's a business approach and a personal approach, right? So in business, we have people from every level. We bring up the next rank. So we have 20 somethings, 30 somethings, 40 somethings, 50 somethings, 60 somethings, and they're all invited into the room so that they get exposure to where the possibilities are for what could be next for them. We can't put words in their mouth and make them decide what they want to do, but when they have exposure to what there can be possible, it makes a huge difference. And educating them on how they can go about it. I think that people, if people haven't been exposed to certain things in their life, if they're the first person in their home that's going to have the opportunity to own a home, that they're going to have a vested interest in a business, whatever that is, they need to have exposure to what those possibilities are so that they can start. So we do a tremendous amount of education. And I think that definitely helps. We actually have a group that it's called Dream Makers, and they share all of what their dreams are, and then everybody shares how they got from point A to point B. It can't be us talking to them all the time, right? I mean, hopefully we can deliver it. I just did a talk right before getting on here. That's why I was a few minutes late. And we can talk to them about what our process is and how we go about doing it to get to those points. But it's so often when you expose them to somebody that looks like them and feels like them, and that they see that that can be a possibility, right? That it's somebody that's their age, or somebody that is an agent right now, or somebody that is a broker right now, or somebody that is a regional owner. They don't want to, they want to compare themselves with somebody that they can see themselves in. And then when they see them accomplish it, they feel that it's much more realistic for them to do it. I think it's incredibly important to give them the education, but it's incredibly important to also give them the opportunity to focus on dreams, right? And finding out what they are and getting to that point. I think the difference between happiness and fulfillment is having that equity. And I don't mean that just financial equity of owning homes or owning a business, but owning your life, right? Have a vested interest in your entire day. You're living with deliberate intent. You're not living on the sidelines, and you're maximizing on everything that you're doing. And I think that we really need to be chief encouragers as much as we possibly can. And, you know, it's so important for anybody that's working on having that equity. You've got to surround yourself with two types of people. You've got to surround yourself with people that bring the best out in you and that force you. I mean, I have a girl at Taekwondo, she's half my age, and she's beside me the night before last, 100 push-ups on my fingertips. And then they say, we got to do a 2.5-minute plank. So after a minute, my whole body's shaking, and I'm in a plank, and I'm thinking, I'm going to drop my stomach around a minute and a half. I don't think I have this 2.5 minutes. And she's beside me, and she's slamming her hand down going, stay up, don't you move. And because she's saying that, I'm staying up, right? One side of me, I'm not going to lie, wants to punch her in the face. But, you know, I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too. And I want to punch her in the face. But the other side of me is so grateful that she's there and forcing me to do what I know I should be doing. I signed up for it. I made a commitment. And if the commitment with myself isn't strong enough, it's a good idea for me to surround myself with people like that. So when I go, I deliberately place myself beside her. Every time I do, whenever she does something like that, I'm like, why did I do that again? But I do it every single time because I know she will not allow me to slide, right? So it doesn't matter where that is, if that's in a personal arena or that's in a business arena. You've got to surround yourself with those people that won't let you phone it in. They won't let you phone it in. They expect more out of you, and they have those expectations so that you get to the point that you have those expectations from yourself. You can't let it go, right? I can't let it go. I have those. How can I be an example if I'm not in good shape? How can I be an example if I'm not doing what it is that I go out and suggest for other people to do? You can't do that, right? But then the other side, you need to surround yourself with people that keep you grounded too, right? And help you to face reality. Sometimes you're just only working and it's 24/7, and somebody's going to say, you know, you got to slow it down because you're going to burn yourself out. And then what good are you going to be to anybody, right? Or just let's figure out some balance here, or let's be realistic. You're trying to do 27 things, finish that one first. But I think that those two types of people really help you to push and have that picture in your mind. I visualize every single morning. I take 120 seconds and visualize, how do I want the day to go? How do I want those people to feel? What do I want that to happen? And so I find when other people do that, their day comes out closer and closer to the way they visualized if they do it. And then at the end of the day, instead of beating yourself up, take 120 seconds and ask yourself what worked. Write it down and continue from that point the next day, because all those things are going to be what's going to change the trajectory of where your life is going. And, you know, Harvard Business Study, they did a study on true happiness, and it comes from really good relationships, but it's choosing who those people are that are in relationships. Now I've got to have a vested interest in those people too, right? I need to have a vested interest in those people so that they know that they matter. And people grow in an area where they feel safe, where they feel trust. So how can you make that in an environment where they feel enough trust that they're going to take some chances, right? That they're going to give themselves that 30 seconds of courage to go ask for something that they were afraid to ask for, or that to go shoot for something that they were afraid to shoot for. And I think even us sharing personal stories when we haven't, not just the ones when you hit the mark, but the ones when you didn't hit the mark. You know, I can tell you when I started back training, I made up my mind, I'm going to be a master 4 years from this December, come hell or high water. But I can tell you that I drove around the building for a couple of weeks before I got the courage to go in, because I'm used to telling everybody else what to do, right? And now all of a sudden I'm going to have higher ranks telling me what to do, and I'm going to have humility, because when I left, I could do 100 push-ups on my fingertips, and now I got to go in and do them on my knees and eat some humble pie, right? But if you want to go to that next level in anything in your life, there are sometimes when you have to have that humility and grace.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of visionary thinking from you, and that translates to people that you work with. It's sort of the see it, say it, be it mentality. So you're kind of here. You're like, this is my goal. But within that space, I'm sure there's a strategic planner in there somewhere. You can't just sort of, hey, I'm going to shoot for this, and I'm going to think about it, which is the power of the mind, as we all know, is so amazing. But back to sort of that building equity, you're building out somewhere, or other people who are trying to reach whatever that visionary goal is, some type of structure and plan. Whether it's written down or you can think about it in your head, how are you going to get there?
Well, I think
milestones.
I think that you have to have, the road to hell was paved with good intentions. And so we have to have good action, right? So I do an action plan, and I teach our people the same thing, that halfway through the month, book off 4 hours to work on your life, not in it. Work on your business, not in it, and plan in advance for the next 6 weeks. So October 15th, roughly, I plan till November 30th, November 15th, roughly, I'll plan until the end of the year. But it's all the action items, because this plan and having a strategy, I've had people give me business plans that are 100 pages long, and I know they're not going to do a damn thing. They just like writing, right? And I've had somebody else give me a business plan on a napkin that I know is going to get done. So, but the thing that's going to be the difference between both is going to be the action plan. What are my actionable items? What am I going to do? Who am I going to meet with? Right? Who am I going to connect with? And so, yeah.
I got a napkin. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
right.
But who, when I go to this, I have this appointment. So how can I make this a wow experience? You have an appointment. How can we create those moments? What do I want the end result to be? Who should I be talking to? Who should I be inviting? What do I need to learn? What do I need to be reading? That action plan is what changes everything. And it's because it's not just something that's good intention on paper, but then you need to have something physical. Like I have a map, because I'm selling the regions across North America. And so I have a map, and our color is teal. So the map is colored in yellow, and I color over it in blue. Every time I sell a state, I turn that state teal, right? Or I turn that province teal. So now I have a visual that 85% of it is teal, and it's in front of me. So I'm almost there. I can see that it's measurable. I can see that I'm getting close. If somebody's saving for a house, it doesn't matter whether they're putting $100 a month away or $1,000 a month away or what it is. They can see progress, right? And it's that you get to see that. I have a book for where I'm testing in martial arts, and I have a book in over 90 days time. I have to do 8,400 push-ups. I have to do 8,400 sit-ups, right?
You should be in the military.
It's a bear, right? But it's in front of me. So I fill it out. I have all the notches to fill out. Then you make it measurable, and now you open it up, and I'm halfway through those 90 days. I'm actually more than halfway through. I'm almost up to 60 days. I can see how much progress I've made, and that changes everything, right? And then you start asking yourself, because you focus on the solution, not on the problem. Then you start to ask yourself, in what way can I, right? Maybe for me, and it's a stupid one, right? Because it's martial arts, but maybe that I need to do 50 push-ups in the morning and 50 push-ups at night, because my body won't take it at the same time, but I can still get it done, right? Maybe somebody that's working towards saving something, maybe they can only save so much during a certain season, because there's other things that are going on in their life, but they can save more once it becomes summer, because they don't have a heating bill and they don't have this. But the more they have that picture in front of their mind, the better they're going to be about getting to that point.
Yeah, it's so unusual. Like, just talking to you ladies, it's so natural coming out of, your mouths, but so many people struggle with that. It's like they might think about something future oriented, and then you're lucky if you get someone who can really plan and have those sort of small wins, as you say, those little milestones that you can measure and track your progress. And then, you know, I think the piece from like a corporate is that accountability. You know, is that a self-accountability? Is that a company holding someone accountable for not meeting certain goals? Yeah, that's, I mean, it's amazing.
Well, and
You
I
guys
think-
can give a masterclass.
But I think that we should even having those tough conversations, right? It's a whole lot easier if you phrase something to somebody and say, I care enough about you to sit down and have this conversation. You're not where you want to be. And when you help people to self-realize, are you exactly where you want to be? What do you think could have happened differently? They start to realize in their own mind, whoa, this was me, right? It isn't somebody else's responsibility. But I think we have to do it pretty, pretty gently. Everybody's a work in progress.
That's absolutely, every day I make mistakes. Desiree, master connector, subject matter expert of many. What is your take on building equity?
Well, okay, so that was a good one. It's interesting how you actually paraphrase the idea that it's easy to come out of our mouths what Tammy was just saying, but it was great how many people don't relate to that. And that's exactly what I found myself in the last couple of years to be, that a visionary of time, looking forward, where we're going to connect the dots. When you've got people saying that you're not normal. And I said, no, I'm completely normal. I'm like everyone else. And yeah, Tammy, let's go there. But the idea is that every one of us on this call are very intense, are very passionate, right? And you know, we're just, you know, you're getting on a plane, you have no idea, you're gonna be gone for 6 months to a year, take the world's crisis problems with all the women. I mean, yeah, no, none of us are intense. But the idea is that passion of thought, that passion of being able to see forward, how we plan what we're looking at and where we're going is really where I connected. I mean, it was like an open thing. So I want to tell a little story about connecting the dots. So I'm an exceptional connector of vision and thought. Sometimes people get lost a lot in me because I ping pong all over the place. But if you stay in the program with me and really start thinking about and hearing it over and over again, you're like, I never knew that. Okay, this is connected. And that's where I excel in getting people to open up about their inner thoughts that their best friends might not know about. So a little quick story. So if you think about sports and water polo, we all heard the story before about me playing water polo, and no one else in Southern California played water polo as a girl back in the early 70s, okay? So what is the number one thing that most CEOs do that are women? They play sports. So the idea is that here we have, every one of us have done sports, whether it's in the military, I mean, that's very athletic, okay, we wouldn't go with her, whether Tammy being, you know, in the karate, you have Teresa playing soccer, all the different things. So the idea is that we talk about teamwork, we talk about leadership, we talk about how we can compete very hard because we don't take anything for granted. We continue to go on and on and on. And so that being said, we look at where when I was playing water polo, I went to go get my very first home and I was denied the loan the day before it was supposed to close because my husband at the current time was disabled. And all the money came from my income, from my salary, from my great job. And they called me up the day before and said, you're denied your loan. And I said, it's all proved. We make the money. We have complete great credit. You know, all our debt's paid off. What do you mean I'm being denied the loan? I was supposed to get it tomorrow morning. And they said, because you're of childbearing age, you can have a child. And you're not allowed to include your income because what happens if you were to go and start a family tomorrow? Then you would not have a way to pay that bill back. So we're not going to give you the loan. So the idea is that when we talk about equality, we talk about equity, we talk about understanding. You think about all those women that are single mothers having children or trying to figure out how they're going through life and putting that together. I never thought of it as affecting my life, but I didn't even think about that until a couple of years ago when I read an article where that was the law and that was able that you could either take 50% of it in the 70s or zero of it be included in the income. And here we are, we're looking today on how are we supposed to gain if we're born as a woman. We have pink tax, we have provider tax, we have poor tax. In every aspect that we're being affected by as women, how are we supposed to have equity or equality if we're not even given it from everything we buy to all our financing terms, our access to capital. And we could go that whole thing about the small businesses, but then having the children and taking care of the physical aspect or the challenges that we have to do as a provider, whether it's our children, whether it's parents, whether it's someone who's sick. Oh, she can do it. She can do it. So you never he can do it. It's a she can do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I look at that as if we go back into the balance of tribe that Tammy talked about. If you think about what is the biggest problem with celebrities, it's the enablers that keep them not on the straight and narrow. They keep saying, yes, 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 we're going to go down that path. Where I love the story of keep grounded. You're working too hard. You know, you're burn out. You're going to be no good to anyone if you don't take care of yourself. And that's where we're at today. That well-being, that mental state, that physical state, to say we got to take care of our body. And here we are, we're going back to going into get a master's. I mean, that's crazy, but okay, Tammy, talk about intensity. But what does that do? It gives you that goal of filling 85% of the United States in teal for Oxford Realty. That provides to you. Look at what Teresa's done from where she started to what she's done with the D&I for Berkshire Hathaway. Insane. Awesome. Look at Erica, you're taking on the women's peace security and being stationed and taking care of where you served in Afghanistan. Now they're on our soil where the military was never set up to do that on our own soil. Those are huge, top of the mind, crazy things that here we are as women taking these on. And mine is I've been knocking down the door saying women need to have a voice, women need to be looked and not and have a diversity, but we weren't. Every banking institution, oh, no, 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 until someone starts, then we'll do it. Well, why can't you be first? Many, many years. And now we're full circle saying, you do all this, you connect all these dots and you understand this, is because someone had to do it. And that's where I believe that empowerment of every day of women, we go back to the story, is really about how can I help you? And the end, we're helping all this, because if I can help you get better where you need to go, right? So anything like, so everyone's like, why did you write all the RFIs and the RFCs for the government, which are the requests for information? Thank you. And refresh for comments. Thank you, Tammy, for bye, take care. Thank you.
Bye.
So those kind of things that we were able to come back and say, now I can pull from, because people say, where is D&I? Like you're talking with Teresa about the D&I, what she's done with Berkshire. Where we wrote the very first Dodd-Frank Section 342 paper ever in August of 2010. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau wasn't even put out until 2011, formed. So if people say, well, it's now the wave, it's everyone's doing it, it's overutilized, I can say, no, we were the first. And that's why Congressman Water gave us the notoriety of being historically, brought it out of DC, brought it to the awareness of the United States, and everyone fully now embraces it. And you can't say that we're just being of lip service. So that empowerment every day for women is huge. And the last thing, what did you just say about the safe space? Everyone's sharing her story. That's one thing that Teresa, you've amplified. Thank you for having this moment that I can be me. I can talk about and no repercussions, no, I can have my real self be here, but at the same time, it's all about the love and support. And I can just take a moment to breathe, because if we don't reset, we don't have that mind to go with it. And every one of us have, we have our beautiful faces, but behind the scenes, no one knows what's going on in our personal lives and our professional lives that we got here. So thank you for that.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so I think you touched on a lot of items. And I would summarize into sort of three things that people sometimes don't pay attention to. And I think Teresa touched on some of these in terms of like the unconscious bias. But the first one I would say would be those societal barriers, which are things like laws, taxes, and access. And then you've got those unconscious biases on your age, your gender. What is that going to mean in terms of your capabilities? What are you going to provide? And then you've got something obvious, which we all know, it's that transparency, looking at that pay gap. We talk about it all the time. You know, there's no disputing that there are pay gaps, and it gets worse with women of color. You know, for every dollar a man makes, a white woman is around 74 cents. And then again, it continues to go down for Black women, Latinas, Asian actually, 84 cents. So how do we become more transparent? And this is where policies and building that equity comes into play. You know, are we just reporting wages? Or again, are we looking at the total compensation package, the relocation costs, the stock options, the bonuses? That's where men are, you know, getting more money, but it's not really reportable. So we're looking for people to be honest about that equity piece. And again, it's not just finances, but at least that one is measurable. A lot of hurdles to overcome. You know, my mother, who grew up in the 60s, always said, you know, my generation fought really hard, the 60s and 70s and the whole ERA and, you know, fighting for equity. And I don't know what happened in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, but it was like we took our eye off the ball and our laws started going away that were there to protect women and equity. And now we're to the point where we've sort of been asleep at the wheel. So now people in our 40s, 50s, and 60s are like, holy smokes, you know, the Me Too movement and the fights for pay equity and, you know, the resurgence of bringing attention to access is starting to slowly creep up. And you look at DINE and that's becoming more of a thing now because people, again, recognize it's more than just having a differing opinion in the room from a differing perspective, but it actually increases ROI and makes the companies, you know, or organizations better. So, you know, I guess, Teresa, you know, you have Latina, proud Latina, you know, you're the oldest. And, you know, for those that don't know your background, I mean, you're a fighter, right? And you're able to take those perspectives and make your organizations so much better. And you can relate more to people who are struggling in a way to get even with those that potentially had more opportunities earlier in life. Where do you think we are as a society right now in this space, and what do you think your solutions would be? It's a big question, but.
God, it is a big question.
Mm-hmm.
So, and thank you again. Let's see, as far as where we are, we have still a long way to go. I do think that there has been a lot of progress made. And the biggest thing is to be visible, right? To talk about it, because in the past we haven't talked about these things. And I think it's really important that the more you talk about it, the more awareness and the more it becomes a normalcy, right? Okay, we're going to talk about this because it is unfair. And, you know, Desiree, you brought up some great points about, you know, pay equity and taxes and, you know, the differences in getting a loan. I mean, can you imagine? I know that I've talked to agents and owners, female owners, who could not have their home in their name at one time, that they had to be married and the spouse had to have the house in their name, which is crazy to me. So certainly a lot of things have advanced, but we still have, you know, opportunities, I should say opportunities that are abundant. Looking at pay equity, you know, again, our organization does look at each role that somebody takes on and make sure that it is based equally, right, on what they're doing, and both male and female, it doesn't matter. It's not gender focused or non-binary. It's based on that role and the opportunity and the years of experience. All of these things are rolled into the pay equity. And we actually do hire independent consultants that come in and kind of look at our organization to determine whether or not those things are appropriate. Now, when it comes to one thing that you mentioned, and I think this is where I think a lot of women struggle, is that opportunity for those options of stock options and, you know, resources that we don't always know about or don't know how to negotiate them. I think that's a big deal. Like whether it's a severance package, you know, you see all these CEOs that leave companies, right? And they are leaving with more money than they made during their career, based on their being, you know, they're being cut, you know, whereas I know women in general, we don't get that. Like, I don't know of any severance package if of a woman getting equal to that I see of some of the larger corporations and a lot of the companies out there. So making sure that we are aware and that we know how to negotiate, and we know how to, when we're looking at jobs, we renegotiate our value every single year. It's not like once this is it, you know. No, every year, let's look at our value, what we bring to the table, and start to say, hey, I am valuable to the organization, and therefore you should also compete equally and provide equal access to the opportunities that I know my male counterparts are getting, right? Which I know at this point, I don't think that's true for us. And I know Desiree does a lot of studies in this, and she probably can speak more, adapt to it. But in any case, I think those are areas where we can improve upon, where I think we need to have better access. And that's all in all of the industries, not just real estate. The advantage of real estate in general, and I talk about it all the time, is that you really don't have a ceiling if you're a real estate agent. It's based on how hard you work and your circle of influence. That's where the difference is. What is your circle of influence? Who are the people that your sphere? Are there advantages if you come from an affluent family versus another? Absolutely. But it doesn't really matter, because it's those connections. There are people that can make those connections that can certainly, earn as much as they desire based on how hard they work. So it is true that for real estate in the business in general, there's really no ceiling. And that's one advantage that we have. Doesn't matter what your gender, profile, ethnicity, none of that matters, because we've seen it across the board, a success rate for all those that really work hard in that business and have those opportunities in the context to be able to make those sales. So I hope that kind of answers your question a little bit, but I do believe
it does. And your industry is so unique because you have representations of the communities that they serve. So that diversity is definitely a valuable piece of your industry. But a point that you were bringing up, which is important, is that cultural piece, that mentorship piece. It's almost like women talking to women. We've seen the studies out there about women and their poor negotiation skills, maybe feeling like they're not worth, or maybe they shouldn't ask. They don't want to be seen as too aggressive. These are things that it's going to take women who've been around to talk to other women, or men that care, to be able to make sure that they are valuing themselves as much as a male counterpart and fighting for something that's equitable. So yeah, it absolutely is partly on that individual, but this will have to be a cultural shift in their minds. And that's
even applying, right, Erica, for jobs that they feel that maybe they don't have the skill sets for, where you hear the data that most men, even if they only have 30% of the skill sets that a job has, will apply for that opportunity. Whereas women, if they don't have 80% of what that job scale requires, they won't apply. They're like, I don't qualify.
I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Well, that's where you have the charisma factor in real estate. If I'm working at a PTA at my school, and then there's other women, then you have the women that are helping the children. So you connect for real estate. That sphere of influence you talked about. Women are really easy to excel, and it's about who love to be involved in the thick of the community, that the real estate agent usually can do exceptionally well. And they find that I could say the sphere of influence, but the culture of ideology of that they support each other, and whether it be the soccer moms, whether it be the baseball moms, or whether it be in cryptocurrency, whatever. You get into that tribe, as Tammy always talks about, is that power of connectivity, then people are immediately going to go to that. And that's why these women's groups that are out there are so powerful, that they only allow one industry per group or chapter that are going to be involved, that way they can network and utilize each other. The other thing that I think is very powerful is that we're not looking, and I'm finding this very at home hitting to me, is our Gen Zs. A lot of the men of the Gen Zs are seeing themselves as, I don't know how to be relatable, by picking up the phone and also calling to express that I'm not going to apply because I don't fit all the buckets, where we always talk about men will apply even if they do one thing out of the 10. The issue is that I find in the Gen Zs now, I have a few, is that they're not applying in jobs because they feel that why put themselves out there if they can't do the job and it's full. They feel a little inhibited, which I find very ironic, because you look at the millennials, you look at anyone else, that the men typically will apply and they go out there. So I think we're seeing a shift of out there that's going on. And I see a rumbling of it, I'm just saying. And that's why I think there's a lot of people starting their own businesses now and trying to figure out how they can do something. And real estate allows you to have a cultural pulse. And so many people are not just selling an asset now, they're selling outside of the sphere of being a normal realtor. They're doing everything else with the real estate sector.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about Generation Z, because I have two of them as well, you think about the psyche that they have grown up with. It's just negativity everywhere. Climate change, the world's going to end, the divisiveness, we've had COVID. There's so many large problems this generation probably feels paralyzed, So how do you shift their mindset that potentially they can control at least what's in their own world, their own family, their own community, versus, all of this that comes at them? It's a really interesting generation. I don't feel like there's a ton of positivity out there coming at them. Whereas the millennials are like, hey, I want to work for a cause and a purpose. And, I want to change the world. Maybe the Zers are like, the world can be changed. It's fascinating, and we have to be cognizant of that with these younger ones. I would say something that maybe we haven't touched upon is the underrepresentation aspect of our society. When we're talking about these unconscious biases, when you look at healthcare, you look at finance, you look at the judiciary, you look at public office, you look at CEOs, you look at women on boards, all of the areas in our society where there's influence. We're looking at very small numbers, anywhere from less than 10% to 20% if we're lucky. Healthcare's got around 30%. I think in real estate, you're probably for sure up there. But what that means in terms of looking at, again, UN and NATO numbers, if you don't have at least 1/3 of that population, whether it's gender or whatever, the outcomes are going to be skewed. They're not going to be as effective because you don't have that voice of that community in these positions that are making decisions. So how do we increase the representation numbers in these areas of influence? And again, that goes back to young girls and planting these seeds in their mind that, yes, you can fly a helicopter in the Army, right? Or yes, you can lead a company, or, whatever it may be, engineering, math, astronauts, owning nonprofits, being a business owner, where does that start? And how do we reach these young girls that are sort of looking around and being told, or not seeing it, as Tammy said, if you can't see it, can you be it? Again, another big cultural thing that we need to improve, I think, in the country. But I'm going to stop talking. Ladies, do you have any parting words of wisdom? We're tackling some pretty big issues, but what do you want to leave people with when it comes to equity and that fair and equal access? I'll start with you, Teresa.
Well, I think it begins with us. It begins with each one of us. Obviously, these principles that we put together, right, have really made an impact, and they continue and will continue to make an impact. So making sure that we are actually the stewards of that, and also are the examples that we set, kind of like what Tammy was saying, you have to lead by example, and you have to show your own true self, along with the fact that we have to train and teach and educate young girls, young men, everyone, because we don't want to leave anyone out. It's 360, right? That there are opportunities, and here they are, and see people that are in those fields. It's harder every day now because of the way schools are set up and COVID and all that stuff. And I think we're losing that. I think we are losing that touch. People aren't seeing It's not as visible as it has been in the past. So continuing to make sure that that is not lost and that we are able to get in front of those that are impacted, that can see us and that can visualize them themselves in these future opportunities, whether it's STEM, real estate, owning their own businesses, nonprofit organizations, all of those above.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Teresa. Desiree?
Yeah, great, Teresa. I also like to look at the storytelling, the legacy. We have to remember where we came from, and second, third gen of whatever our story is, our ethnicity, or our backgrounds, because we have to, we're thinking what our last person we saw someone is what they are, and they don't realize the struggles and how hard we had to work to get there. And I believe that if we are better stewards of our legacy and what we went through to be able to showcase and help keep it in the mindset of the younger generation moving forward, we're going to let them know that you have to work hard to whatever you need, and work hard does not necessarily mean work till you're so exhausted that you can't move, because we now have to really take care of our mindset to make sure that we reset and that we have support systems in play, where before we took things so much for granted. And we're going to lose that family element because we're no longer having what Teresa talked about, that touch, that smell, that hug. When's the last time we really sat down and hugged our children or our family and friends, or saw one? Whether it's a reality or not, do you go and you say, hey, let's do the elbow hump, let's do this or whatever. And, oh, do I wear a mask? Am I look like differently? We used to look at the PC, the political correctness, or cancel culture. We've become so reactionary. And I say in parting, we have to have empathy and love, and remember that no one's perfect. We all make mistakes, as you said, every day, Erica, which I can't believe. But we all do something that we hinge going. I still to say have that chip on my shoulder. Oh my gosh, I said that thing. Does that mean they like me? No, they don't. Oh my God, I go in this crazy wild, and I'm like, don't waste your time on what you think. Just do. And if you can take care of yourself to help improve others, then you're going to be a better person, because you can't please everyone. And if we have that mindset, we're going to have a better life for all of us. And I think that's the most important thing is that help each other and we'll be successful, because there's enough for everyone out there, and we're not helping each other do that.
Very powerful. I think of the word resiliency, and we celebrate that word resiliency, but there's a lot of story behind that resiliency. So if we're resilient people, we've had to go through things to overcome. And then that is where we can pass those stories, as you say, to others, where they can relate and recognize that they too, through hard work, can overcome, which in turn makes you resilient. Well, I thank you, ladies. I know everybody's super busy today and in life, and hopefully someone can glean some good nuggets from this. And I will pass it to you, Desiree, to close it out.
Well, thank you, Erica, for hosting us. I know you have orders to go to Fort McCoy on Monday. That's crazy. It's just wild. So we're going to get definitely an update on and get out there. So what we have is that December 2nd is we start the whole cycle over again for these principles that so graciously we put together. And it's going to be acknowledged trailblazers. And so we're going to start that off, or we're going to have books. We're actually all going to have a book that it's going to amplify and really embrace that principle, what we're doing. And hopefully what this is going to do is continue the stories that we've heard from previous and books that we've all read, or something that is powerful, or a movie, whatever is going to be relatable, that we can really amplify what that is, because the power is things are getting more complex. And the more we can help share quality, quantified data, it's going to help us understand so we can shift through that stuff, because life is becoming very powerful, and we need to make sure that we keep that love of heart to go with it. So thank you very much. Everyone, please be safe, stay healthy, and remember to hug someone and just smile. It's a great way to go forward in life. So thank you very much, Erica. And thank you,
ladies.
Teresa. All right.
Erica, good luck. And,
thank you. I'll keep you posted.
Please do.
Okay.
Yes. All right. You take care, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Desiree.